And we're live. All right, guys. Just wanted to welcome you to our second SaaS webinar brought to you by Duda as well as us. And just to get us rolling, I'm Jesse Schoberg from Drop-In Blog, and we have two guests today, Eugen from Semrush and Joanna from Prowly. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about mergers and acquisitions. So you guys both have an interesting story that's kind of two sides of this, and we'll be getting into that in a little bit. But to get started, why don't we get some introductions here for people who don't know who you are. Joanna, why don't you go first? Tell them who you are and about Prowly a bit for people who don't know about your product.
Yeah, sure, of course. As you've mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder at Prowly, and I'm a PR professional from my own previous experience. And after a few years of experience in this field, I decided to run my own PR agency, and that's basically where the idea for Prowly was born. And starting from 2014. Here at Prowly as a co-founder, I've been responsible for managing and growing company by defining the strategic direction, providing proper resources, so funding and people, as well as building company culture. So that's
Great.
it as for the start. Happy to share our story later.
Yeah, we'll get more into that in a bit. And Eugen, you want to give the audience a little hit on your background and Semrush?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Eugen. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Semrush. So not everyone knows what is Chief Strategy Officer, but in general, I kind of decide in terms of broad direction what company is going to do within the next 5 years, but also additional part of my job is to acquire companies and do strategic investments. So that's kind of what I'm doing most of the time and why I'm here today, I guess. In terms of my previous experience, I used to be partner in several VC firms. I did everything from seed stage to late stage and pre-IPO deals. And before that, my background was kind of in the computer science and engineering. In terms of Semrush is a large, publicly traded SaaS company, and I have a couple slides about this later. So.
Okay, great. And yeah, that was one thing. Joanna, can you just give us like a 30-second, like what is the elevator pitch of what Prowly PR software does?
Yeah, of course. So basically, Prowly is a subscription-based platform which is dedicated to PR professionals. And what we do is to help them do media relations more effectively while saving time on routine tasks. And our set of tools simply help let them find relevant media contacts, organize them in a CRM, as well as create visual press releases, send them to journalists, track the results, and while maintaining online newsrooms. So
nice.
That's how it works.
All right. Well, I guess to let the cat out of the bag about what we're going to be mainly talking about today is that not too long ago, Semrush has acquired Prowly. And so today we're going to be hearing about the two sides of that deal and kind of how you guys both approached it, as well as getting into some deeper questions about general acquisitions from either side. So that's kind of what we're going to get into today. To get started, we are going to be getting a presentation from Eugen, and he's going to give us some explanation about how they handle M&A from a acquisition side and what they're looking for and those kind of things. So let's start out with that, Eugen, whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Just give me a second. Yeah. So Semrush. Just a couple numbers about the company. So Semrush is an online visibility and management platform, which means we help different businesses to improve their online visibility. And when we say visibility, it means probability of being discovered online. So for example, when, let's say, someone is searching for products that your company provides, we help you to rank higher in Google. Or if you think that you need bigger social media audience, we help to build this audience. And then, of course, with the acquisition of Prowly, now we also help businesses to have better digital PR and kind of better relationships with journalists and media. We are focused on SMB segment, so over 7 million marketing professionals have used Semrush. We have very well regarded portfolio of products, including 14 different international awards specifically for search engine optimization software. And that's kind of where, what our company is known for, even though portfolio of products is way, way broader. And then despite the fact that we work primarily with small businesses, we also are very successful in working with larger enterprises. So we work with over 30% of Fortune 500 companies. And then at the bottom, you see some cool brands that benefit from using Semrush. In terms of, M&A, one of the things that happened with us recently is we went public. So now we are publicly traded company on New York Stock Exchange. This is a picture from opening bell ceremony. You can see the small guy on the left side. That's me. I mean, I'm wearing masks, so obviously look better on that picture than today. But still really good memory. I mean, for many businesses, getting IPO and becoming public company is a big deal. But from M&A point of view, what it means is that now our shares are liquid, which means you can buy companies using shares, and they're pretty much as good as cash, or sometimes even better than cash. So once companies go public, it becomes much easier for them to buy other companies using their own equity. In terms of deals that we've done so far, we have done 3 deals. And out of them, 2 have been done just this quarter, which kind of shows that once company becomes public, it's easier to buy other companies. Before becoming public, we bought 1 company during the whole lifetime of Semrush, which was roughly 10 years, and then we bought 2 more companies just in 1 quarter.
Sorry, when was it that you went public again?
It was last year, almost exactly a year ago, March 28th.
Okay, so you guys are getting right into it, was your point there.
Yes. That's. Also, we have roughly 270 million in cash and cash equivalents, which also helps to buy companies. And our market cap, I mean, I put 1 billion plus. It's higher, but volatility is high, so I felt 1 billion plus is a safe number, but sometimes it gets much higher. So. As I said, I guess what I'm showing here is that we're definitely getting more and more acquisitive, but also in terms of scale, we're probably not going to buy something for $1 billion. We're not at that league, but we are probably in a league to buy something around 100 million plus.
Just a quick note, anybody who's watching here, if you want to throw any questions in the comments, then we'll get to those after this presentation. And then Joanna's going to have one later. So questions as you go, just throw them in there and we'll get to them when we can, guys. So go ahead, Eugen.
Yep. So for every deal, there should be some strategic thesis, the big reason why you're doing this. And for us right now, we are kind of at the stage where we're doing deals in a more tactical way, where companies have some unique asset or product that we want to add to our portfolio. So for Prowly, the thesis was that we like the digital PR market. It's pretty close to other areas of online visibility, and we wanted to expand into this market. And to speed up an expansion, we decided to do an acquisition. Plus, it's a great product to cross-sell to our existing user base. It's priced in the SMB range, so really good fit for our go-to-market model. With Backlinko, It was more of a content play. They've spent years building extremely high quality content. Could we invest years and millions of dollars in building the same kind of content? Probably yes, but if they already have it and it's for sale, it's better to buy. And plus, we got access to a very large audience that they had already. And then with Kompyte, the thesis was also expand into new market, plus open products for new buyer personas. So for example, Semrush is usually purchased by marketing professionals, but Kompyte is a marketing product that is used frequently by sales executives. So we wanted always to have products that will be used not just by marketing professionals. Kompyte was this kind of product, and plus it's a great upsell for our existing audience that already uses a lot of our own competitive intelligence products. So as you see, every deal has a thesis, but in general, the big idea is that companies usually do M&As when they need to get something done faster. Like it's already aligned with where they want to be. They just want to get there faster than they would get there otherwise on their own. And then obviously M&A is a very complicated process. It takes a lot of time and resources. So it's definitely not a solution for every problem that business may face. And here I just try to put a small diagram to show when M&A is appropriate and when people should go for kind of different solutions. So I think that M&A really appropriate only when you have something that is simultaneously strategic in a way that's the direction that company wants to take regardless. It's time sensitive in a way that if you don't get there right now, somebody else will take the market or you will never get there on time. And then it should be also unique, because if something is not unique, if there is no scarcity, if that's a commodity, then it's just better to outsource or license something like that. License the product or technology or something. So essentially, when you have something that is strategic and time sensitive but not unique, it's better to license. If you have something that is strategic and unique but not time sensitive, it's better to build yourself, because there is no urgency. You'll get there in 2 years, no big deal. And then if you have something that is time sensitive but not unique, then it's just better to outsource this to someone else. There is no need to use your own resources and R&D on doing something that is not strategic. So as I said, ultimately, M&A is appropriate only when you have all three components. So something that is strategic, unique, and very time sensitive, especially time sensitive.
So it's a pretty interesting diagram, actually. I haven't seen that put together, but it makes a lot of sense. It's also interesting trying to look at it from the other side of if trying to get acquired, and in this scenario, it's a pretty hard diagram to hit. There's definitely a lot of timing and market fit stuff, and it's you can't really build your company strategizing for those three things. I mean, you can to a point, but I think it's an interesting seeing all that laid out is quite useful and gives you a lot to think about, when trying to structure your company of how you might want to be attractive to acquirers such as yourself.
Yeah, and by the way, that's a really good point, and that's why I think that in general, building your business around the idea that your goal is to be acquired is ultimately a losing strategy, because you need to be all those three things simultaneously, and then different buyers, they may have additional criteria right on top of this. It's very hard to be this kind of missing piece of the puzzle intentionally. Right. A lot of companies get there, but I think the best way to get there is just to be focused on customer and build the business, rather than try to figure out what some other company will want in 5 years.
Right. Create value. And if you keep creating value and catering to your customer base, then, maybe someday someone will see that value and fit into their puzzle.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And yeah, building up on on this comment, there are really several things that we look for when we buy companies. Now, obviously, this list is going to be very different for each corporate development organization, but I think there will be a lot of similarities. And also, I want to make a comment that we are not really kind of roll-up type of buyer. There are a lot of companies that just buy everything in their space. Like, I don't know if you have, let's say, retail stores, you will be buying similar retail stores in other countries or other states. We are not like this. We buy only very strategic things that are complementary to our business. So our approach might be not exactly the approach that some other companies may have. For example, even in digital world, sometimes we see, let's say, eBay at some point have been buying eBay clones in other countries, or Groupon have been buying Groupon clones in other countries. So that type of approach would not be similar to our approach. We have very different strategy. So when we buy companies, we look above all for high quality products, and we do a lot of customer interviews to identify good products. We are looking for a team. There is no need for us to buy anything if team is not joining Semrush for a meaningful period of time at least. We're looking for synergies. For example, things like cross-sell, upsell, leverage of our go-to-market team, leverage of our existing audience, and so on. We like good markets. Essentially, it does make sense to buy good company in the bad market. As things scale, bad markets just going to be too tough of an issue to overcome. We like companies with strong retention profiles. Obviously, we can look at segments. For example, if it's an SMB software, we have one benchmark. If it's an enterprise software, we have a different benchmark. But we think that customer retention is in general a good sign of strong product market fit, and product market fit is very important. We look at traction and growth, but it's at the bottom of the list, so not the most important thing. It's more of something that we use in valuation framework. And then we look at cash burn. In general, the idea is that if team have been prudent with their own capital or capital that they've raised from investors, they'll probably will be responsible sort of shepherds of our capital that we are going to put in the business. And we are looking for, at least certain scale. In general, companies should be big enough for for the deal to be meaningful. Because if it's something that is 0.1% of our revenue, no matter how good everything else is, it's not going to be impactful anytime soon, usually. And then there are things that we don't care about pretty much at all. And I think that will be very surprising for many people, because those are things that they usually pay attention to when they build companies to be acquired. But I don't think those are things that buyers really care about, at least not we. So the first one is investors. I've been in transactions where investors are very helpful to sell the company. I've also been in transactions where they've been paying in the ass. And in general, I think having or not having investors is pretty much irrelevant for a buyer. If anything, actually, I would like most of proceeds to go to founders, because I feel they always deserve more than they get in some of those transactions, especially if they had to raise a lot of money and take a lot of dilution. The second part is funding. As I said, we don't really care how much money business have spent previously to get to the level where they are today. We are more interested in how much money we need to pay. We need to invest in business moving forward. So funding doesn't matter. A lot of people they say we'll raise a lot of money, and some people feel it make them better M&A prospect. I would argue actually the opposite, because buyer will have to pay a lot of money, and probably in cash, right? We don't care about PR, so where a company is featured doesn't matter. If PR helps with business, great. People should be doing this. They shouldn't be doing PR just to be more, on the radar of investors. Of corporate development teams, because our job is to discover right companies, regardless of what kind of PR they're doing. We monitor a lot of companies that are not doing a lot of PR anymore, and a lot of companies, right before they want to sell, sometimes they hire people who have very, very good track record, like ex-Google, Apple, Facebook, and so on. We don't care about this at all. Most of those people not going to stay after acquisition anyway, or going to be very expensive to keep. So not really. Maybe some buyers care about this, not us. We don't care about logos. We want to see good customers, but we don't need to see Amazons of this world or Apples of this world in a list of logos, because we know that small company may have problems selling to those accounts, and we would rather have 3 good accounts than 1 great account. We don't care about buzzwords. A lot of people put AI into description of what they do, or some other whatever is a fancy buzzword in 2 years, AI, blockchain, whatever. We don't care. We care about what is the value for a customer and how they use the product. What is in the description is totally irrelevant for us. Advisors and bankers. Actually, we sometimes see bankers as a negative, especially if it's a small company. There is no reason for a small company to hire bankers to run the process. And most of the corp devs, very responsive. If you just text someone like me or my colleagues over LinkedIn, will reply. And then world-class CFOs. That's usually something that comes with investors. They want to get really good CFO very early. And I think it makes sense for them, right? They want to have someone who, manages the capital and speaks the same language, and in a way represents their interests. But for a buyer, that's just an expensive hire, and buyers would rather prefer this money to go into go-to-market team. If you hire a sales rep, right? By the time you sell the company, you get really good ROI on this sales rep. You're probably not going to have a good ROI on the CFO. At least that's my opinion. But I think that's it. That's kind of everything I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's great. It gives a lot of insight into what's where your guys' head is at on those types of acquisitions. A couple questions. One thing that came in was when you do these acquisitions, do you keep the team and the founders, and what kind of terms do you put, especially on the founders in that scenario?
Well, we like to have transactions where founders are rewarded, both for the work that they have done before and the work that they're going to do in future. And we like compensation packages that are generous and also connected to performance. So, for example, and also we want to have companies to be aligned in terms of what is important. And for example, if for Semrush, growth is important, then we will incentivize teams to show higher growth. And as I said, I don't think we can share all the details, but I feel that we are very generous in terms of,
what length of
we
time
want
for key staff, founders, and maybe other C-level people, do you want them ideally to stay with you, or are usually part of the terms, or something, just kind of rough ideas?
Yeah, of course. So that's going to be part of the terms right away. We usually need what's called key employees. We don't necessarily know who are key employees at the beginning, but we know who are key employees when we have done our due diligence. The number of key employees can be very different, but sometimes it can be half of the headcount.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then related to that, we had another question come in from Hans here, asked on those deals that you did so far, did you keep all the CEOs from all 3 deals?
I can answer this question partially. I'm still here.
Yeah. So in 3 deals that we've done right now, yes. So with the 2 deals that are kind of product deals, we have kind of long-term plan. with a deal that was kind of more of a content acquisition company called Backlinko. We have an agreement that is not very long, but yeah, so far the founder is still with us. And I think usually, we like to work with people, if possible forever, but then, people may have other plans down the road. So it's our job to incentivize, right? But then if, people may have other reasons. So for example, in case of Backlinko, actually founder wanted to sell in the first place because he wanted to focus on his second company. So that's okay for us. We agreed that he will stay with us for some time. And then when time is right, he can go and run his second business. And if we can help with the second business, we'll help with second business. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, and related to this, your side of it, what factors do you think about when you're putting in a multiple, when you're doing these more non-revenue based? I mean, these are kind of strategic acquisitions, I guess you could say, that you guys are focusing on. So how do you kind of put together a multiple when it's so strategic, and what factors do you use for that?
Yeah, no, I think when there is meaningful amount of revenue, we still try to do multiples. We look at public comps, we look at growth rates, revenue retention. So all the metrics that impact revenue multiples. It's of course going to be a simplified analysis versus what, let's say, bankers run when they when companies are doing IPOs. But in terms of substance, it's a similar framework. If we had to buy something where there is not enough revenue to price something based on revenue, then we would look at, how much money would it take us to build ourselves? How much time would it take? What is the value for us in getting something faster? We would look at things like this.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then can you say kind of what sort of multiples you guys are going for in your level of acquisition, and what you're targeting, or what makes sense to you guys?
Yeah, as I said, we look at public comps. Every company will have unique set of public comps. We, depending on the market conditions, we will apply or not apply public to private discount. I think the way market is today, IPO window is closed, so there is definitely a benefit in being public. So public companies in current market environment probably should get a premium. So we would look at multiple, like competitive set. We will apply a discount. Whatever the number is, we will offer the number. Sometimes people feel that number is too low, and we don't do the deal. Sometimes people feel that number is okay and we do the deal. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thanks for putting that together for us, Eugene. It was really helpful. And yeah, I really liked that Venn diagram with the thing. It puts, I think a lot of people just think like, oh, I'm going to build this company and then like it's going to be a unicorn and everyone's going to buy me for $100 million. And then when you see that diagram, it really shows like how unlikely kind of you are to get acquired in that scenario, right? Based on all of the different things that your company could be doing, which shows that, as we talked about, yeah, it's just focusing on your customers and just building a great quality, useful product for them. And then, maybe someday someone like you will come along that happens to have that fit for that scenario.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In general, it's not super likely. If you just look at statistics, very few companies actually get acquired down the road. And it's kind of how venture capital model is built. Their idea is technically that they will fund a lot of companies. Most of them will fail, but some of them will be acquired for a lot of money to cover for all the losses. I actually, being on the other side, I don't always think that this is fair for founders. And I think investors should be more transparent about chances and how they view their investments. I think a lot of investors, they kind of oversell to get into the deal or get more favorable terms. And then it's just their model. It works based on relatively low probabilities, especially if you're talking to early stage, seed stage investor.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that I will say is that for bootstrap founders, focusing on being profitable will make your asset always saleable. It's like when you're trying to get these kind of unicorn acquisitions, it's a lot of it's about user base and this kind of stuff, right? But if you're a bootstrap founder and you just focus on profitability and revenue, and just building a quality company, right? Then you actually do have a saleable asset more on the investor market, not as like this merger type of market. So there definitely is an exit path for people. It's just a slightly different route. Maybe the multiples are a little different, but there's definitely a very active market, especially in SaaS and products like that. So this isn't the only way to get some sort of a payout on your hard work of many years. So. Cool. Well, I think next then we are going to roll into Joanna's side of this story, and she's going to give us a quick little run through about what it was like on her side and what factors went into that. So why don't we get going with that, Joanna?
Sure. Thank you. Another side of the story. Okay, so today I would like to share more info about Prowly, our story, and also shed more light on the process of partnering with Semrush. I think that our story is like it's super modest comparing what you have already heard from Eugene, but I hope you'll find it useful. So starting from the very beginning, or maybe rather starting from who we are right now, so we could have a better understanding on the scale of our operations nowadays. As mentioned on the very beginning, Prowly is a subscription-based platform dedicated to PR professionals. It consists of several tools, starting from media database, PR CRM, email outreach, analytics, and to online newsrooms. And basically, our goal is to help PR professionals do media relation and cover the whole media relations process in one tool, super effectively, while saving time on routine tasks. We started in 2014, and we're based in Poland, but we have a multinational team that works from different parts of the world. And as for now, we have over 1,000 customers, and the majority of them come from the US. And starting from 2020, we're part of Semrush. And how it all happened. So now, starting from the very beginning, it was 2014 when I ran another company, which was a PR agency. We worked for different tech startups and VCs here in Poland, so it was quite natural for me to start thinking about such a tool as Prowly, because on the one hand, there was a PR industry and tools that were pretty old school those days. On the other hand, I had a pleasure to work with a lot of amazing startups from different industries and be able to see how they are growing their ideas, as well as what kind of mistakes they are making along the way, which was also really helpful. And finally, I have already known my awesome co-founder, Sebastian Przyborowski, who was very experienced product developer, and he was the one I reached out to and ask him to help me shape the idea for the product. And as for the very beginning, so still in 2014, we've managed to secure 50K US dollars of seed investment, not really, big amount as for the very beginning, from one of the VC funds in Poland to build an MVP. And actually, this VC fund was one of my clients in my agency back then, and they literally called me and asked if we want money to do something with this idea. So that's how
Wow.
it basically started.
What was the tipping point there when you're in the agency and you had this idea bubbling for the product, but you weren't really there yet? What was that tipping point when you said, "I'm going to go for it. I'm going to talk to this guy who's going to be my co-founder. Like, let's actually take action." Was there some catalyst that kind of pushed that?
No, there was no very precise plan in my mind back then. I was always rather a person that is connecting the dots, and there was a time when a lot of different startups, the startup scene was actually started to grow in Poland. It was the very beginning. I had a pleasure to observe them, what they are doing, how many different ideas they have for
So it
different
kind of been
industries.
infectious from around
And
you.
yeah, and the PR industry was so old school back then. Most of the PR professionals in Poland locally, because once we started, once we went global, it was a totally different story. But in Poland, we were, an alternative for Microsoft Office back then. So we brought a lot of freshness into the PR industry. But going back to your question, it was rather a coincidence. I wouldn't say that it was very well planned.
And that first version that you said you did in the local market, was the interface in Polish or in English?
Yes, it was in Polish. We started locally with having 50K US dollars funding, not much, but we've managed to build an MVP and run some operational stuff for 2 first years, but it was rather bootstrapping. And looking, for low cost techniques to develop product and acquire customers. But the good thing was the fact that I had an experience in PR. I knew what PR professionals really need, and I was able to get the product feedback quite effectively. Sebastian was the person who was responsible for the shape of the product, for the development of the very first version. So we were very complementary to each other. So that really helped us to survive during the first 2 years, because as mentioned, we operated only locally, and to be honest, the only thing I felt I know how to do back then was how to do PR. And I think that we're a very, very good example of the project that proves that PR can sell, because we've built a very strong, recognizable brand in Poland. We were able to sell while doing some viral campaigns, PR activities, but still considering the local market, the scale was really small, because we were able, during the first 2 years, we were able to to acquire around 200 customers from Poland, as far as I remember. Yeah, and then it was 2016, and this strong brand awareness and initial track record, it all helped us to secure pre-A series round of financing, again from Polish VC fund, in cooperation with one of the performance marketing agency. And it was the moment when we were able to start preparing the global launch, actually, because we finally had some funds to do that. Yeah, and during the next 2 years, we were really working really intensively on the product market fit on global markets. And going global helped us realize that the needs of local PR industry in Poland are like totally different than outside Poland. Based on the international user feedback, we have built next core features, and actually it all started from product. Those features helped us constantly increase user acquisition, shape and scale our inbound sales strategy. And during 2 next years in a row, we have reached over 100% growth in MRR. We have managed to reach a break-even point and secure cash flow for upcoming years. So it was like those 2 years were really amazing. They were super intensive. They changed absolutely everything inside the company. Our operations, our way of thinking about customers. So that was definitely something really meaningful, and I'm really proud of that, to be honest. Yeah, and then 2020. So 2020, that was the moment when we had 2 VCs and 1 industry investor on board, and we started to look for opportunities to go for another round of financing, because we weren't actually looking for any exit those days. So we're not very typical example of the company that did a lot of reach out and hired an external agency to look for M&A opportunities. Nothing like this. And since none of us, neither me nor Sebastian, we didn't plan to leave the company. We had a pretty long experience with VCs on board. During the conversations with Semrush that reached out to us in 2019, I guess it was, right, Eugen? Yeah, it helped us realize that partnering with complementary software as a service solution and company that already been where we were those days, who has tons of experience in scaling the company, that this kind of cooperation can be much more effective from the perspective of growing the company than going for another round of financing with VC that can offer you mostly funding and some added values which are really different depending on the partner. Yeah, and so after a few months of discussing the future together with Semrush, we spent a lot of time together during different conversations. We decided to grow further under the Semrush umbrella. And I wanted to sum it up because maybe some of you wonder what was important for us to make a decision back then. So I will sum it up. Maybe it will be helpful for some of your future plans. So first and foremost, it was really extremely important for us to partner with a product that operates in the same business model, and we can be an added value for its customers from the perspective of offering, as Eugen mentioned, this potential of cross-sell is really important for both sides. And in this case, Semrush works for marketing professionals. We work with PR professionals. We cover different needs, but our target audiences have some kind of similarities. They are not competitive. They have so similarities at some at some point, and this gave both parties, I hope that both, a feeling that we have a huge potential from the perspective of cross-selling, as mentioned, and as well as on the technology side. We could use some components of Semrush infrastructure to improve our own product capabilities. So that was the first very important criteria for us. Second one was the autonomy. So basically, both me and Sebastian, and I'm sure that everyone who thinks about selling, your own company, it's almost like a child. If it's your, first.
For sure.
First company that you consider successful, we were a bit afraid of that we will lose control regarding the business decisions, etc. And that is why we also spend a lot of time together discussing the near future. We just wanted to make sure that we have a common understanding of the vision for further development of Prowly. And it was both as for the product and also as a company. So we've managed to agree before the transaction, during the negotiations, we've managed to agree on critical things like Prowly will stay as standalone product, standalone brand, and also an entity that develops its resources locally. So that was the second really important criteria for us. And last but not least, it was a culture fit. And that was the hardest one, because it's not really easy to verify who they really are before joining the company and become some kind of insider. But there are some things apart from simply spending as much time with each other as it's possible during the process. Some things that you can do to verify how it really is to work for someone. And Eugen, you don't know that. It was a secret till now. But yeah, we had a chance to talk with a few Semrush partners before the transaction, did some research among the influencers and also ex-co-workers to hear different stories from them. It was really helpful for us, to hear how it is to work with Semrush from, different sites. And it helped us to make sure that it's a good partnership especially because here at Prowly we really we feel we have a strong culture and values that are part of our decision making process. So it was also really important for us. Yeah, and that's it when it comes to the main criteria. I hope it was helpful for any founders that are with us today. Yeah.
Well, thanks a
Thank
lot
you.
for that, Joanna. It was really helpful to hear your side and kind of the thought process as a founder as you're going through that, navigating those waters that were new to you as well. One thing, when you were at that moment, you were actually just looking for another round of funding, and these guys had been knocking at your door saying, "Hey, maybe there's another option." What was the main reason why you decided to go that route versus just getting more funding? Because in a way, it kind of works out the same, where you're basically getting some money, you're still working there. It wasn't just a clean exit, So, what was the main reason that you decided to go in this merger type of acquisition route versus just getting more money?
Sure. So I think that the main reason was the fact that we already knew how it is to work with different VCs, because we had two of them already on board, and we had totally different experience while cooperating with them. The fact that we were based in Poland from the very beginning, and during the first 2 years, we haven't even imagined that we'll go for global. We worked with very first VCs, very traditional ones that are based in Poland, and it wasn't helpful, to think about how it is to invite, another one to our
So you felt
board.
these guys
And
were going to bring you some strategy and
yeah,
actually add value instead of just money to what you guys were doing.
definitely. Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the
that's great.
experience, the possibility, to learn from Semrush is really exceptional in our case, because our stories have some similarities, and I think that it's really helpful for us to drive growth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Eugene, one question for you. When you've gotten into these types of, she had said that you did some outreach to them in 2019. I'm guessing you've probably done outreach to a lot of companies as you're trying to knock on the door to see if this is a good fit. What kind of red flags have you run across when you're doing that? Or, you see someone on the internet and you say, "Oh, I've been watching them from afar. I like their product," this kind of thing. And then you start talking to them. What kind of red flags have come up from your side that made you back off or concerned or these kind of things?
Yeah, I would say the reason we would like to build relationships upfront and we reach out before we are ready to do the deal is exactly to find those red flags, because a lot of them they're not going to show up right away. So for me personally, big red flags is dishonesty, right? So I like to talk to people for a long time, ask questions, and then if I'm starting to sense that the answer to this question was one thing 6 months ago, but now is different. Those things over time can accumulate to a point where I feel like I just cannot do this, right? Because I cannot fully trust. And as Joanna said, trust is a two-way road. So the same way I should establish that what I'm saying is consistent over time, that our values are clear, that people want do understand what going to happen and how their life changes after the transaction, right? Because there is some change. We try to be as open as possible and give people as much freedom as possible, right? But still, being part of a large corporation is not the same as running a relatively small business. So I want to make sure people understand this upfront, and that takes time, like to explain all the nuances and to figure out the play. But for me, as I said, the dishonesty is a big red flag. Conflict between founders, sometimes sometimes it's not necessarily an issue. Sometimes it's a reason why people want to sell. They say, there is a conflict. we, let's say one founder says, I want to stay. Another founder says, well, but I want to go. And that's why they're selling. And in this case, it's fine, right? But sometimes people are hiding the conflict. And you can pick it only, when you meet with people, spend with them couple days or sometimes weeks, and you start pick up small signals that there is no, they're not as good of a friends with each other as they want you to be.
So the message to the founders is keep your lies consistent over time. Got it.
Probably there is this. But at the same time, we don't care about conflicts between investors and founders, because we're not going to leave with investors, right? We will leave with founders.
And when you're in the early process, again, reaching out to her a couple of years before the deal actually happened, how do you start that process? I mean, if you guys are just kind of looking for all these sort of adjacent products, like what kind of criteria do you use, and how do you start to the beginning of the sourcing of these deals?
Yeah, so every year we're identifying several verticals that we want to explore. The number depends really on the size of organization that I have and amount of time that we can dedicate to research, but at least four research papers per year. We spend roughly a quarter looking at some vertical. We write 10-page, 20-page document with a summary where we say, do we like the market? Do we like the strategic fit? And then we say, okay, but if we were to go there, what would be the companies we want to talk to? And we have a short list. Depending on the market, it can be 3 companies, or it can be 10 companies, maybe sometimes 20 companies. And then we prioritize them, and we technically just reach out to every single company that we are interested in. And then we see who's going to be better fit, who has better product. And then we narrow it down to just a couple companies. And eventually, if we feel that company that we can buy is also the company that we should buy, then we make an offer and move forward. So that was the case, I think, with Prowly. We talked to many different companies. We felt
but we were still the number one on the list.
But we felt this
from the
is
very beginning.
Yeah. No, honestly,
that's what he said. Yeah.
By the way, I think we actually were introduced to Prowly kind of closer to the end of the process, and at that point we were actually getting close to a conclusion that there is probably nothing in this market for us to buy. And then we met with Prowly, so that was kind of the.
So we're the last choice.
One more question that came.
Listen, I wouldn't say the last choice. It's more of a the first quality choice, right?
Yeah, there you go. One more question that came in from any regrets? We'll give this to Joanna. Any regrets through the process? Things that could have gone better, or stuff like that?
Not really. It's not about regretting anything. There were rather some kind of surprises for us along the way. As Eugen mentioned, we are now part of the big company that hires over 1,000 people across the world, and that changed a lot. So it was some kind of surprise and a lot of new stuff related to our daily operations, mostly connected with legal, with finance, which is quite normal and natural that we should integrate in those areas. That was hard at the very beginning, and Eugen knows that. But we overcame this, and actually the good thing is that I feel that now when we are also scaling our team locally, we are able to do it quicker thanks to the processes that we already have on board. and the processes that we didn't have before.
Sure. So it takes a while to get used to operating in a much larger organization, but
yeah,
you got
exactly.
in there, now you can leverage those tools that they have of being a larger organization. What percentage of your team is locally there versus international?
Our team is international. It consists of different people. Most of them are based in Poland, but a part of Poland, it's mostly in Europe, so Czech Republic. Basically, we have this 100 freedom to choose the work and the place and time to work. We did it before COVID. It was quite natural for us. So people are working from different places and they have different nationalities, but most of them, as I said, they are like based in Poland on a regular basis.
Great. All right, guys. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up there. I want to thank you both for coming on today and sharing your sides of the story. I think we got some pretty unique insights from both sides, and hopefully we'll have you on again sometime when we're doing more sassy stuff here. So thanks a lot for coming on, and I'm Jesse from Drop and Blog, and we'll see all you guys next time.
Thank you very much, and I wish you all good decisions in the future.